All right, thank you so much for staying with the Monday Report Town Hall. You're just in time for the discussion that we talked about. It's disability and politics. We had asked you earlier, is the current political framework conducive for persons living with disability? Hashtag Monday Report. Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. I see a lot of your feedback already coming through, even on video. We'll play some of them in just a bit, but let me introduce my guest real quick, beginning from my farthest right, Jonas Simba, National Disability Chairperson, Labour Party of Kenya. Thank you so much for making time. Ashura Michael is here. She's a member, National Government Affirmative Action Fund. And Elizabeth Njeri Ngure will be Ashura's sign language interpreter tonight. And Honorable Denita Gatti is also with us here, Member of Parliament for Persons Living with Disabilities. Thank you so much for making time this evening. John, I'll start with you. So that's a question we ask people on Twitter. Is the current political framework conducive for persons living with disability?
Good evening, Trevor. Now, my take is we have come a long way as a country in making space for persons with disabilities. When I look at the journey since 2010, there is a lot that have been done to improve the space for persons with disabilities, but there is still a lot to be done. So far, so good, but there is still a lot to be done. That would be my take.
All right. Ashura, what do you think? Is the space conducive for persons living with disability?
Thank you, Trevor, and good evening, everyone. Just like my colleague has said, the framework is far from being perfect because most of the political parties, they have persons with disability leagues. For example, the ODM party has a strategic plan that has involved persons with disabilities. So moving forward, compared to the past, most persons with disabilities now who have been nominated and elected, for example, we have Westlands MP, Wanyonyi, we have women rep who are persons with disabilities, so we are moving into the right direction.
All right. Honorable Gatti, you know you've been on both ends of this divide. What do you make of it? Is this a conducive environment for persons living with disability?
Allow me, Trevor, to just say that for persons with disabilities, I think the intention is there to make it conducive for them to participate in politics.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that the willingness is there, but the implementation is not there. We still have a lot to do when it comes to persons with disabilities in politics. I mean, we are getting into a political, situation in this country, and obviously you will see persons with disabilities participating, whichever way. I mean, you'll see all manner of techniques and styles and things like that really make it possible. We have seen the will and the willingness really from various political parties, because persons with disabilities do politics of political parties, because we want to get into elective positions. We have to belong to a political party. So you have seen, for example, the party that I come from, really trying to bring on board the desire to make, the podia, to make, the environment conducive. But again, the willingness, I think we have really not invested so highly in the structures that make it possible for persons with disabilities. So that is something that we need to continue pushing so that persons with disabilities are able to really participate in the process. So we are heading there. Yeah. That's what I would say. I think we are just heading there.
Yeah, but
we have not really said that we have a level playing field for persons with disabilities and persons without disabilities. If you look at how the podia are organized, how do you expect a person with disability to get into a podium to actually sell their policies? How do you expect, when it comes to campaigns, to see materials? We still have materials that are not translated into the language that persons with visual impairment, for example, can use. We have seen so many of our people and so many people really, and parties and actors and sponsors and partners trying to make it level, to level it so that persons with disabilities participate just like any other person without a disability in the political arena. So we are heading there, I think, but we still have to show the willingness, really, that serious willingness for persons with disabilities to participate in politics.
All right, Ashura, you wanted to jump into this. Is it that the people who've been nominated... Yes, go ahead.
That is, we have a situation where the environment is not conducive, but we have the Westminster. They did a research on disability participation in politics. So the findings are that together, all political parties they should come together to see how they can address the issue of disability and politics. From this report, the PPO political party, they should find a way how to support the persons with disability participation. What is important is to have persons with disabilities in the NEC. We should have a person within the NEC so that they can, our interest can be presented well in the NEC. Yeah.
Simba, is it enough to have people representing persons with disability, and where is the problem when Honorable Denita says that it's a lack of willingness to implement? Okay. Can you blame this on the system or the persons who've been nominated to those slots? Okay,
Trevor, I want you to picture this. There is no real power without provision of funding. Now, one of the things that has been done by the government is to give political party funding to parties so that they may fund activities of persons with disabilities. Now, without a fail, go to every party. You will notice that the monies that is meant for people with disabilities within these parties have been used wrongly. Most of these parties have used these monies either to buy furniture, to buy motor vehicles. None of this funding has been channeled to people with disabilities. And in some cases, it has even been taken to, other marginalized groups. I'm talking of maybe the youth and the women, because most parties consider issues to do with disabilities, as to be given less attention. I mean, are there votes within the disability sector? So the framework is there.
Yeah.
Everything has been provided.
Yeah.
But now when it comes to the goodwill of the leaderships within the party, there is a huge problem.
Okay.
Yes.
No, but Anita, do you agree with that statement? Is the money sometimes redeployed to other activities?
We have had problems, ideally, with the whole idea of clumping disability to so many other causes. Because when you look at, and I will not lie to you, for avoidance of doubt, we basically know that the rights of persons with disabilities in this country are extremely well safeguarded in Article 54 of the Constitution. That is the Bill of Rights, Chapter 4. Completely, whether it comes to issues of economic, issues of political participation, and issues of everything. But when you look at what has been happening, and even for us as members of parliament, especially those of us who represent persons with disabilities, because I sit in the National Assembly representing persons with disabilities, if you look at what we have been doing, for example, with Article 100 of this country, Article 100 is the article basically that talks about special interest groups, and that is what my colleague is talking about, the issue of SIGs, special interest groups. How then do we ensure that even within Article 100, that seeks really to make it easier and beautiful for persons with disabilities to participate holistically, we can really ensure that when we are talking about issues of women, issues of youth, and issues of persons with disabilities, you will realize that ideally persons with disabilities usually are left behind.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about the whole idea of special interest groups in this country, all of a sudden, the issue of persons with disabilities is not really brought forward. And that is what we have been calling to say, how then do we ensure that even within the allocation that is given to counties, for example, or to this country, and when we say 30% You see, when you're saying 30% of tenders, for example, go to special interest groups, what do you mean by 30%? Yeah. Unless we are categorical in saying that out of the 30%, 10 is women, 10 is youth, 10 is persons with disabilities.
Yeah.
Now, if you claim them that 30% is for special interest groups like that, persons with disabilities get 0.01% of that 30% that ideally is supposed to. So what we have been calling in this country is to actually, bring that difference. Yeah. How do we tell that really this 30% is for SIGs, as we call them in this country? So Article 100 of the Constitution, and you remember, even before we went on recess, even before we actually went on our big recess, we were actually talking about how do we ensure that we actualize Article 100 of our Constitution in this country, so that persons with disabilities ideally get their correct share. We have had meetings with the political parties, the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, talking about these issues. We have had meetings with our own political parties. I sit in the neck of the ODM party. NEC is the leadership of the ODM party. Yeah. And what we have seen even within the ODM party is to ensure that we as members of parliament with disability, and for your information, we are actually 2 members of parliament with a disability, myself and Honorable Tim Wanyonyi, who sit in the leadership of ODM party. With Baba and with so it is an organ making. How then do we ensure that really the issue of, for example, the 5%, as is in the constitution of this country, is implemented even beyond political parties? But again, Trevor, what we are saying as persons with disabilities in this country is that political parties have a duty to actually make it conducive for persons with disabilities. And that really shows, even from the leadership, the composition of the political parties. Do political parties bring together persons with disabilities even within their own structures of leadership? Okay. That way, persons with disabilities will see that this party, like my party, for example, you will see leadership from NEC level right until the grassroots and the various polling stations in our counties, in our coordinating committees. How do we ensure that this works? And that's what we are throwing this challenge to even the Jubilee Party or URP, which is the other party, UDA. But now, so that now we are saying we cannot just talk and say because we are here, everything is not correct with persons with disabilities, and that's what we are championing for. So that when we're saying now this inclusivity must really reflect, and that's why we are seeing the good thing with how we are heading. And you are seeing the inclusivity that persons with disabilities have been talking about in this country is best now when we get into PBI, because we will get into PBI and we see how then do persons with disabilities benefit with the inclusivity that we have been talking about, because we have benefits in the whole document. Okay, Ashura.
I partly agree, and somehow I do not agree, because on issues of disability within the political parties, I think political parties have really tried to implement, and they have tried their best. For example, ODM, they give us money from their program, not from the party, because Disability League was formed just the other day, at the end of 2016, before the elections. Then after there were a little bit of wrangles, but there was some opposition, but later the process has been really nice. So they give you money, and the Disability League is within and is in the constitution of the ODM party. Okay. So there's an article that really explained clearly how to spend that money. Okay. So we have not received any money from Registrar of Political Parties. We are using our own money. Okay. So we must have a responsibility from the political parties based on their interest. Right. We must see that these people, what are they bringing to the party? Okay. Do we have votes? Okay. But recently, Raila gave money to the Disability League to go to the different counties. Yeah. We have visited all the 47 counties to strengthen the Disability League, and this is from our party. So when you talk about the 30% for persons with disability, I do not agree with Honorable Danita, because I'm under NGAF, where I'm working under the Honorable Pasaris. We've really tried The good thing is that Pasaris has made sure that they consult a person with disability to sit in the committee to make sure that in every county or every constituency or sub-county, they get 30 equipment, 10 out of those equipments must go to persons with disability. So Ngaf, Nairobi County have really done it. They are very fair. They've shared the resources equitably.
All right.
So, as Danita says, Article 54, Chapter 4 of the Constitution of Kenya on human rights, we have equal sharing of resources. We as leaders have responsibilities to make sure how we should accommodate everyone in our program.
Simba, is this event just used for political mileage? Is the persons with disabilities situation just used for political mileage by the leaders we have?
Okay, I can't outrightly say so, because persons with disabilities in this country are human beings in real need. So when these parties try to reach out and solve some of the issues that affect persons with disabilities, I want to believe that they are to a big extent genuine. Maybe somewhere along the way they lose the focus. Okay, I come from the Labour Party of Kenya. I'm the National Disabilities Chairman. My colleagues here come from the bigger parties. You can say Jubilee, ODM, these are bigger parties. But then if you look at what they get from the national revenue, I think it's 0.5%, Danita, if I'm not wrong. Now, that's a lot of money, because if you get that amount, and then you say 30% is to be taken to the special interest groups. Now, who is there to check that a third of that money goes to persons with disabilities? Because yes, you've been given 30%. If you calculate, that's a lot of money. Now, that 30% must also be equally divided amongst the 3 or maybe 4, because there's another group that is called workers, or the marginalized groups within. So you will find that there are about 4 that need to get a share in that 30%. Who is there to check that? So I would just say that they have a genuine will, but to some extent. Now, if you conduct a PWD audit, and hopefully, okay, I sit in the CMD board, Center for Multi-Party Democracy board, and I know there are other agencies like the National Democratic Institute and others that may conduct an audit. They may be able to conduct a PWD audit. And I'm sure that if you go to these counties and conduct an audit just to find out how many slots for nominations for people with disabilities have genuinely been given to people with disabilities, you'll get a shock. In some cases, they will tell you we don't have people with disabilities. In other cases, they'll tell you we have people with disabilities, but they are not qualified. So they give you someone who is able-bodied to stand in for persons with disabilities. In some cases, they'll tell you, you'll get all manner of stories. So there's that genuine desire to help, but without check, without someone to be like the watchdog, someone could easily go wrong. And human beings, to some level, need some kind of watchdog. Unfortunately. So there's that genuine desire. I believe that's why they came up with all these wonderful opportunities for persons with disabilities. But now we need a watchdog. We need clear audits. We need somebody to come and ensure, even if you go to procurement, that's even a more complicated corner. If you go to procurement, just go to the counties and conduct an audit on procurement. Find out how many staff within these county governments are actually persons with disabilities. You will get a shock. Even the businesses that are being given out, you will find that there's a huge gap. So the framework is there. The opportunities are there, but they are not being properly utilized because we don't have a watchdog.
Okay.
So I can say that the desire is there, but we need somebody to help us.
Okay.
Yes.
There's a lot of feedback coming through on social media and videos as well. Let me play some of them and hear what you're saying.
I do think the current political environment can favor the disabled, since it's all about leadership and service delivery. That's it. Thank you.
Just like everyone else, the disabled do deserve representation. However, it is very wrong for anyone to use their situation as a bargaining or a campaigning tool. However, we should as a society make sure that we create platforms to ensure that the disabled are not only able to compete favorably, but they are also in a just and fair society.
Trevor, the answer is a definite no, because people living with disabilities have not been given an equal playing field in politics in this country. And I think it's high time now for Kenyans to give people living with disabilities a level playing field to carry out their politics.
The inclusion of people with disabilities within political parties remains inadequate in Kenya, and this is especially evident going by the small numbers in their political representation in elective and appointive positions. Nixon Dugere is my name. Thank you.
People living with disabilities should be respected because, as they say, they are just a minute away from disability. So we should treat them with the respect they deserve.
So when a leader in the National Assembly and also a member of the BBI Secretariat uses that against him in politics, then I'm sorry to say that we are far much below the code of ethics in matters disability and politics.
For the people living with disability to have that fully conducive environment in this country, let their special seats, special nomination seats be independent and not be affiliated to any political party. By so doing, they'll be able to represent other people living with disabilities well and articulate their needs in parliament and government so well.
All right, Honorable Gatti, you know, what do you say to the people who say that you have essentially failed? Because you've mentioned that there's a long way to go, and you've even talked about the 30% youth procurement that should have been allocated to persons with disabilities. What are you doing about it? You're representing them in the House. Can't you bring a bill in their support?
Trevor, I think a majority of the people who have spoken have actually spoken what represents views of so many persons with disabilities in this country. And that is why if you look at what we have been doing in Parliament, right from Senate and National Assembly, is that we have been reviewing and revising the various bills and even bringing motions to the House. It's just the other day that I was actually also bringing in a motion before we went on recess to ensure that persons with disabilities also get even, for example, assistive devices that can assist them to move around and participate in the political process. If you look at our constitution in the same Article 54 talks basically about inclusivity of persons with disability. The 5% that it talks about that they need to be included in bodies that are appointive and nominative in this country. And when members say that persons with disabilities, you know, we are a political country.
Yeah.
And persons with disabilities must belong to political parties. In this country, if you look at what has worked even in this country, is that persons who have been elected have actually come from political parties. That is the scenario that has been. And that is what, even when we were going around within the BBI and members were, you know, giving their opinions of persons with disabilities inclusivity in BBI. These were the views. And in the House, what we are saying is that we have revised, for example, Article 100 of this country. And that's why I said Article 100 on special interest groups. What does it say? In terms of, for example, the 0.5% that goes from the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties as funding to political parties to support persons with disabilities in this country. So political parties have tried, and that is what I said. We have tried, and I'm talking about my party, which is the ODM party. The ODM party, and I said, has tried to have persons with disabilities right from the national to the grassroots. And that is why we're saying, even within that party, for example, and I speak, when I speak also about my party and about the situation that is in this country. If, for example, a party can decide to allocate money to make sure that a wing of disability is within a political party, is already a commitment that persons with disabilities then must find a way of belonging to political parties. Which I just came from Kisumu today, where we were having these kind of discussions on persons with disabilities and the process that is BBI and inclusivity. Before that, we were actually within the various counties in this country, where we went around with the ODM Disability League, trying to listen to views of our people, and our people gave these similar concerns. But let me tell you, persons with disabilities rights are protected very well in Article 54, and that's what I said, the Bill of Rights. Then how do we ensure that these are the rights that we as members of parliament, even from where I sit, and that is what I'm telling you, we have been trying to review the various provisions in the Constitution. Article 100 is one of them. Article on progressive implementation of 5%. If you remember, Senator Mwaura in the Senate brought this motion. And actually, it was actually a bill, and said, how do we expunge that 5%, for example, the 5% employability, 5% progress, that name progressive in our Constitution really takes persons with disabilities back. Because when we say 5% progressive increment, in terms of employability, in terms of employment, you realize the person with disability did not. You are saying it is progressive. Because you go to an office, people will tell you that, oh, the Constitution says it is progressive. Progressive means slowly, pole pole. So that means persons with disabilities are left behind. So what we have been trying to do, even as the Kenya Disability Parliamentary Association, where I am the vice chair, is to ensure that we look at our constitution, and we have tried to expand articles that are completely derogatory. That is the article on employability. Then look at for example, the penal code of this country, and that's what we have seen as members of parliament. The penal code of Kenya, in section 146. Section 146 of the penal code talks about persons with disabilities and refers to them in a language that is completely derogatory. They say persons with disabilities, that article refers to persons with disabilities as imbeciles. Who are imbeciles in this country? And then you say that if you refer a person with disabilities as an imbecile, what motivates you to work for persons with disabilities, for those imbeciles? You see, we have been working as KEDIPA. And so many partners, including the Coalition on Violence Against Women, to expunge that section of section 146 of the penal code in this country, so that we are able to make it easy and conducive for persons with disabilities to belong. First, you have to belong. Political parties have to open their doors. And we are happy that political parties have taken up this issue. Let me tell you, the Constitution of this country, 2010, provided immense opportunities for persons with disabilities. That is why you are seeing in the counties, we had for the first time representation of MCAs, 2 MCAs in every county representing persons with disabilities. But unfortunately, there are counties that did not produce. I am telling about 17, and it is a shame that we did not abide. So the willingness is there from the political parties and from the players, including our donors, the National Democratic Institute, the Westminster Foundation, and so many other partners that have been walking this journey with us. But we cannot leave issues disability to donors. Let me now tell you what we have to do. We cannot leave issues disability to donors. We have to take it upon ourselves to actually make laws that are conducive. So we have laws, and we have tried in Parliament to make them work for us.
All right. Ashura, do you see this appointment sometimes as tokenism rather than being done based on merit?
For me, what I think is that it's not a token. It's a way to show that they appreciate persons with disabilities. These positions are there, and we are not given the resources to manage the position. For example, the women rep, they have their own resources. which is NGAF. The MPs have CDF, but when we come to the nominators or representatives of persons with disabilities, they do not have like a kitty where they can do their stuff. So they blame our representatives, but their hands are tied because they do not have resources. Sometimes we must ask ourselves, are they representing the interest of our people, or are we representing our own interest? So that is the main question, which we cannot answer now. But did persons with disabilities represent us well? If they have not done well, then now it is not about tokenism. We must change. It can become token only where resources are not there. So we have to empower them. When resources are available, they are able to control and know how to use them. So they are just there to fulfill what is there in the Constitution. So you cannot move around to meet your people. You should have your own office so that they can come and get assistance from you. We have to go out there. We have National Council for Persons with Disabilities. They have money there, yes. We have Association for Women, for Children. So they have representatives in Parliament, but still we need representatives who can get some small funding to support themselves and support their people. Okay. So I think it should radically change, and it is our responsibilities as leaders. It's sad because sometimes we find that leaders, they fail us. If a person fails us, it does not mean I will also fail you, or we have all failed. Okay. So we have varied leaders, and people should be given opportunities. Okay. One of the person in the video said that persons with disability should be independent and not belong to political parties and choose their leaders separately. So I cannot hear, but I have eyes, I have hands, I can talk to you, I can communicate to you, I can build the country. I am a voter like you. So it does not mean we must like put ourselves in a silo and just do things on our own. Okay. So if you want to stand for president, if I want to stand for a governor, give me your vote. Yeah. Look at me, look at my ability, not my disability. Okay. Remove the word dis, pick the ability in the word disability, and then you will see success in us. All right,
Simba, it's interesting what Ashura is bringing up, because then there's the issue of having leaders that are deserving. Do you have a system whereby you would say, if we're going to have representatives of persons with disabilities, this is our list, people we vetted, people we believe in?
Okay. That's one of the conversations that has been going on in the disability sector. To some extent, persons with disabilities would prefer, the college votes, where they nominate their own, and then they give to the parties, and now the party chooses for them. Because when these people are nominated by the parties or the leaderships, they go and represent the interests of the parties. At the end of the day, the one who employed you, the one who called you into that work, is the one you would represent. So if the party is the one that has called you, then you would do your best to represent that party. Unfortunately, my friend, Honorable Isaac Mwaura, is out of work right now because of falling out with his party. When you are too confrontational, you have to remember that you've been put there by your party. And that is the challenge. That's why maybe to some extent the persons with disabilities would do with a college where they nominate their own and then provide to their leaderships. Now the leaderships nominate them. But let me say this. Issues affecting people with disabilities are the issues affecting the normal mwananchi. It's only that there are just a few things here and there that may be a bit special. It may be important to have someone who understands the need to be there. Look at issues of money, for example. We had the currency, coming up. I can tell you, I've operated within the Kenya Union of the Blind for long. I've dealt with the blind like me. None of us can know money by touching. Now, if you go to Treasury, they'll tell you we have put some engrainments, those lines on the money for the people who are blind. But none of us can tell the money. That tells you that a lot is being done for us without us. When you are dealing with issues of health, there are some special issues within health that are special to people with disabilities. It needs a person with disability. No wonder some counties were talking to some of us and saying, we want to help you, there is money for you, but how do we help you? So you need someone who understands what they need to help you help them. Even in the education sector, these are issues that may affect us, but they may need a bit of a speciality, some kind of your experience. Issues like sanitation, those are issues that affect the normal mwananchi. But to a person with disability, sanitation within the slums is very key. Issues like water stress, those are things that a person with disability who doesn't have a wheelchair, for example, would need more water, for his or her sanitation. Those are things that maybe a person with disability representing that particular sector would be keen on, that there is water stress here. There are things that may need some kind of focus. So that's why we need to have our people. It's not for nothing. They may help the leaderships. That doesn't say that the leaderships are not for us. They are for us. Look at what they did, for example, with the Kenyan currency. They're indeed focused on helping, but they may not know how to help as well. Maybe if they approach it, we could have told them, let us first, let us first test the samples and see if they can be, properly identified. There are many things that you may want to do for persons with disabilities, but without one of them to tell you this is how you need to help me, you will always find yourself, getting it wrongly. Yet your intention is right. Very good.
Okay. Yes. I'll take a quick break here. Still see a lot of your feedback. When we come back, I'll read some of them and also your videos online. See you in just a bit. We're still talking about disability and politics, but we're talking about generally disability and leadership and even other cadres as well. I see Christina there speaking about why this is just about politics. It's not just about politics. Get the wider picture. See you in a bit.